646. Do you know that there is a shortage of pilots that is just now beginning to occur? We're going to have 20,000 cockpit spots available, opening up in the next 7 years. To talk about how that's going to impact things, we're joined by Kevin Jenkins, an aviation industry consultant. Kevin Jenkins, LLC.com. Ken, I should say. Ken, great to have you here.
Hi, nice to be here.
Sorry about that. I just talked to a Kevin. Now it's Ken. Again, it's Ken Jenkins. Ken Jenkins, LLC.com. So now you work for American Airlines. What do you think of it? Because this is all based on this new mandatory retirement at 65, right?
Well, that's part of it. And just to be clear, I did work for American Airlines for 26 years. I'm retired. And I was not a pilot. But in the pilot recruitment areas, so many of our pilots came from the military, and had military background. And that pipeline is no longer really available. We don't have the number of pilots from the military retiring to come to commercial aviation. The second reason you're starting to see a shortage of pilots, I believe, is after the 2009 accident with Colgan or Continental Connection in Buffalo, New York. The families from that accident lobbied Congress to change the number of hours that pilots had before they could become a first officer. And that increased from 250 hours to 1,500 hours.
Wow. Is that necessary in your mind?
I think it was necessary to increase the hours. I don't know that it should have been 1,500, but at this point, it doesn't matter in that any increase was going to increase the cost of the pilot's education. And because of that, I think what we're seeing is that it's almost becoming too cost prohibitive for people to go out and procure the education and the time they need to become a pilot.
I mean, is it an attractive job financially nowadays to be a pilot?
It is in commercial aviation, but it takes a long time to get to that top tier, and only about 10 or 15% of pilots ever become that top tier. The larger the aircraft, the longer the flights, the international flights, and that's moving from the first officer seat on the right to the captain's seat on the left. And you have to start typically at a regional airline to get the hours, and the beginning salary there is around $20,000 a year.
$20,000 a year to be, wow, that's not a lot to be a pilot.
No, it isn't. And many of these individuals, young men and women, are coming in anywhere with $50,000 to $150,000 worth of debt for the school that they've had to take and to procure the hours just to be able to be in the cockpit.
Okay, so how many years of work does it take before let's say you're making six figures as a pilot?
Well, I mean, it's a lifetime career, and part of it is going to be how ambitious you are to move up into the left seat. And if you're in a carrier where there is mobility. So if you have a lot of pilots and the seniority, everything's by seniority. And if people are not leaving the organization, then it's going to take longer for you to move up the line. So there's really no way of saying. I would say it's a long-term goal. It's not something that's going to happen in just a matter of a few years. And
now the mandating that pilots retire at 65, is that a wise decision?
Well, that was something that was done a few years ago. I think so, and that was done in what to help to help stave off the pilot shortage. What you saw in 2001 after September 11th occurred, or actually if you go back to even a year before then, the airlines were not doing very well financially. When September 11th, the events of September 11th took place, many of the airlines filed bankruptcy and thousands and thousands of employees were laid off. It's been almost 14 years before the airline industry has seen a turnaround. So a lot of pilots left involuntarily, as they were laid off. Many went to work for international airlines. And now that we have airlines that are profitable again and they're buying planes, we don't have the manpower to staff them. So now you're seeing cuts in primarily the regional airline sector. You're seeing cuts into some smaller cities where they just don't have the pilots to fly the aircraft to those ports.
Is this, are we going to see a change in salary? And is this now a good time to maybe get into the business?
Well, I'd love to say that you would see a change in salary. I don't know that that's going to be what's going to happen. What you're seeing initially is that we're starting to see collaboration between, say, an airline university type or aviation university working in conjunction with a regional carrier to help subsidize the students' curriculum and the cost.
Okay. Oh, they come out without debt, and then they get their $20,000 a year.
Or the debt is reduced, and so they have a conditional employment offer when they come out, which is certainly going to be beneficial.
That's incredible that someone who's got the lives of so many people in their hands is making $20,000 a year.
Well, and you're right. It is pretty incredible, but yet we do that in the United States with our teachers and police and firemen too.
Yeah. It's Ken Jenkins, aviation industry consultant. KenJenkinsLLC.com. Check him out there. Ken, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
When we come back, you'd be amazed just where we rank in